Think of your body as a massive, bustling city. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to explore the completely invisible biological machinery keeping your personal city running. And of course, I'm talking about the endocrine system. Now, for any city to function, it needs a pristine communication network. Yours is driven by hormones, which are basically chemical messengers controlling everything from your metabolism to your stress response. But what happens when that vital communication network breaks down? Well, today, we're going to find out by putting you right in the shoes of a lead medical detective. So picture this. You're the attending physician in a busy emergency room, and a 35-year-old man has just been wheeled in. He is experiencing these terrifying, sudden episodes of total muscle paralysis. Right away, after stabilizing him, you've got to figure out what's driving this massive physiological crash. You suspect it's some sort of metabolic issue, so you order a highly specific set of blood tests to check out his endocrine function. Let's see what the lab sends back. Okay, let's dive into this raw data. Compare your patient's numbers to the normal, healthy ranges. Look really closely here. His serum total T3 is sitting at 2.93, which is well above that normal maximum of 2.44. His free thyroxine, or T4, is at 27.4, again, significantly higher than the normal 21.0 upper limit. And then there's his TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone, which is also elevated at 5.55. But interestingly, his TSH autoantibody level is 0.2, resting very comfortably inside the normal range. Now keep these numbers in the back of your mind. To actually crack this case, we need to step back for a second and understand the biological rules governing these exact chemicals. To figure out what's happening to our patient, we've got to establish the basics. What exactly is a hormone? Basically, they are secreted signaling molecules. They act as your body's ultimate long-distance regulators. They get released into your extracellular fluid, hitch a ride in your bloodstream, and travel to virtually every single corner of your body. But here's the catch. They don't just activate everything they bump into. A hormone will only trigger a response in specific target cells that possess the exact matching receptor for it. It's a brilliant, highly specific lock and key mechanism, ensuring these powerful signals only talk to the organs they're actually meant to. So, how does your body keep those incredibly powerful signals from just running wild? It uses feedback loops. There are two main types you've got to know: negative feedback and positive feedback. Think of negative feedback like the thermostat in your house. When your living room gets too cold, the heat kicks on, right? But once the room is warm again, that new heat signals the thermostat to shut the system off. It actively dampens the initial stimulus to quietly restore balance, or homeostasis. Positive feedback, on the other hand, is totally different. It's like an amplifier. It takes that initial stimulus and just reinforces it, building up a larger and larger response until a specific biological process is powerfully driven to completion. Let's look at a perfect real-world model of negative feedback in what we call a simple endocrine pathway. Imagine you've just eaten. Highly acidic, low-pH food leaves your stomach and enters the duodenum, which is the first part of your small intestine. That harsh acidity, that's our stimulus. Endocrine cells in your intestinal lining, called S cells, detect this acid and immediately secrete the hormone secretin straight into the bloodstream. The secretin travels over to target cells in your pancreas, telling it to release bicarbonate. This bicarbonate neutralizes the stomach acid, and because the acid is gone, the initial stimulus completely disappears, causing the S cells to stop releasing secretin. Boom! It's an incredibly elegant, self-limiting system. The loop just naturally shuts itself off. Right, so let's contrast that with a simple neuroendocrine pathway driven by positive feedback. Think of a mother nursing her infant. The baby suckling is the initial stimulus here. Sensory neurons send that signal up to the brain's hypothalamus, which then triggers the posterior pituitary gland to dump the neurohormone oxytocin into the blood. The oxytocin reaches the mammary glands, making them contract and release milk. But here is where it completely diverges from negative feedback. The release of milk doesn't stop the process. Instead, it leads to more suckling, which triggers more oxytocin, which triggers even more milk. This positive feedback loop amplifies the signal constantly, building rapid momentum until the baby is full and finally stops suckling. Let's move to how the body handles signals that require way more complex coordination, because that's where things get really interesting. For that, it uses a hormone cascade pathway. Think of it like a multi-step relay race. Your brain sends a signal to an endocrine gland, which releases a hormone that travels to another endocrine gland, which then releases yet another hormone to finally affect the target tissue. Because you've got so many moving parts acting in a series, these cascades are ridiculously sophisticated. But it also means there are multiple points where the entire system can completely break down. And that brings us right to the thyroid cascade pathway. This is the big one that regulates your bioenergetics, your blood pressure, your muscle tone, and your heart rate. It all starts in the brain.
the hypothalamus secretes TRH. This tells the anterior pituitary gland, sitting just below it, to secrete TSH, or thyroid-stimulating hormone. TSH then travels all the way down to your neck to stimulate the thyroid gland, which finally releases those active hormones, T3 and T4, into your system. But hey, remember a thermostat? To keep your metabolism from just revving completely out of control, T3 and T4 perform negative feedback. Once they hit normal levels in your blood, they literally block the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary from releasing any more TRH and TSH. The system perfectly polices itself.
All right, let's bring our patient's data back into the light. Apply everything you just learned about feedback loops. You're the detective here, so look at those numbers again. We know he's got highly elevated T3 and T4. According to the strict rules of negative feedback we just walked through, those huge levels of T3 and T4 absolutely should be screaming at the brain to completely shut down the production of TSH. But check out his TSH level. It isn't shut down at all. It's elevated at 5.55. Something is terribly, dangerously wrong with the thermostat.
Okay, here's how we synthesize these clues to crack the case. First, the high T3 and T4 absolutely confirm the patient has hyperthyroidism, an overactive thyroid. This completely explains those extreme symptoms, like the sudden muscle paralysis, which happens due to massive, rapid metabolic shifts. Second, look at the autoantibodies. An autoimmune condition called Graves' disease can actually cause hyperthyroidism by producing antibodies that artificially whip the thyroid into overdrive. But our guy's antibodies are totally normal, so cross Graves' disease off the list. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, that elevated TSH is our smoking gun. It proves without a doubt that the negative feedback loop has failed. The thyroid is screaming at the anterior pituitary to stop making TSH, but the pituitary just isn't listening. So what's our final diagnosis? Our patient has a tumor in his anterior pituitary gland. This rogue massive abnormal cells is just blindly pumping out TSH, completely overriding the body's negative feedback system and literally paralyzing our patient in the process. It is truly mind-blowing when you step back and think about the sheer scale of it. Hormones coordinate the precise physiological responses that restore balance in our bodies, literally every second of every day, whether you're running to catch a bus, digesting your lunch, or just fighting off a stressful email. Microscopic molecules are silently rushing through your bloodstream. They're locking into specific receptors and triggering these massive cascades that literally keep you alive and functioning. Your entire metabolic health relies 100% on this unbelievably delicate microscopic balance. Which leaves us with a pretty profound realization, honestly. We just saw how a single tiny disruption, just one broken negative feedback loop, was enough to bring a totally healthy 35-year-old to the ER with sudden paralysis. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you sit here right now listening to this, what other silent microscopic cascades are firing off inside you, dictating your mood, your hunger, your energy, basically your entire experience of the world? The human endocrine system is an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering, and the crazy part is we are only just beginning to understand all its secrets. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible biology happening just beneath your skin.